last night, by the way.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet, Brian. The video got lost in all the food pics and grandkid posts. There's just too much stuff on Facebook. I don't want to buy protein shakes for my cousin's kid or watch a cat playing piano. Facebook wasn't made for collecting, that's for sure.
Well, Chris, now there's a better way to break.
Well, spit it out. What does that mean?
There's a new platform designed specifically for breaking, created by the pros at Real Sportcards. It's called Uncommon. When you use Uncommon, you won't see any of the Facebook clutter. You can tune in to a current break in progress, see what's dropping next, browse your favorite card categories, and easily find what you're looking for.
That looks easy as pie. How do I join a break?
You simply click, and your spot is on hold. No more constantly refreshing and commenting to claim teams. Then it safely and securely charges your account. A notification will tell you when the break is about to start, and a live chat lets you cheer each other on.
Well, this is a walk in the park compared to Facebook.
Yep, sure is.
Can I start now?
Absolutely. Visit uncommonapp.com today for a better way to break.
Where has this been all these years? I think I might delete my Facebook now.
Alright, what is going on, everyone? Titus here with Real Sportcards. This is a little bit different for me. I'm used to breaking in here, but we actually have an in-store PSA 101 event, and kind of taking our first submissions for the store, and then we'll also be starting to take mail-in submissions, and then later on this month we'll be taking grading submissions too. Not grading, break submissions. So as soon as you hit something in a break, you'll actually be able to submit it right to us for grading. So pretty awesome stuff happening here at Real Sportcards. Nate just gave me the thumbs up that the audio is good, so we are going to get started with this. I'm going to give a little presentation, and then we're going to be taking questions in store. We're going to be helping people prep their cards to send in tonight, and yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So let me switch you over to the desktop, and we'll start going through some of this stuff, and then I will be kind of switching back and forth between showing you some cards in various stages, and then also showing you a PSA website and some eBay stuff. So it's gonna be a good time. So let's switch over to the desktop and we will get rolling. All right, so you can see some beautiful cards there in the background that we have personally helped grade, and some of these I actually pulled. Aria Superfractor back there. Elijah Green 101, this Otani that's back there. So kind of fun to see cards come out of the pack and then also end up in slabs at the end. So let's get started here. I might have to, there we go, click. All right, so we get asked this question all the time. What are the differences between the grading companies? You know, you see all the different slabs. Are they all the same? Is there any difference? Really, in the past couple of years, PSA has truly taken over as the king of grading. Some of you that have been around the hobby longer remember when Beckett was kind of the industry standard. But the three that I'm going to kind of talk about tonight are PSA, SGC, and Beckett's. And we'll get into some data and different things that help differentiate the three. But in just a nutshell, PSA is kind of the most common one, kind of the industry standard now. Kind of the king of grading. SGC in a nutshell, like the value that they provide is turning cards around really fast, and they do have their kind of iconic black slabs. And then Beckett, like I said, has been around for a long time and is still kind of recognized as one of the bigger ones. Beckett can be good for cards that aren't going to be Gem Mint 10s, and like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more further on. They can also be a little bit better for thicker cards, but in a nutshell, PSA is going to be good for everything. SGC is going to be a little bit cheaper and good for like new release stuff that you want to turn around quickly. They've kind of established themselves with a lot of specials, like they've been doing Bowman specials and top specials that right when the product comes out, you can send it to them. They'll turn it around, in just a week or two and get it back to you so that you can sell it quickly. But long term, PSA is going to have the most value, and we'll get into some of that data here in just a second. So why PSA? As I was saying, PSA has kind of become the king. I look at it as kind of twofold. Like, on one side, if you're looking to grade for increasing value, PSA is going to be the king. And then also, in terms of PSA just becoming more popular, people like to have all of their slabs looking the same. They like that uniformity. So yeah, on the value side, you got the best chance at increasing value with PSA. And then they also have a very attainable Gem Mint 10 grade. So as we look at the different companies, they have different scales that they use. It is almost impossible to get a Beckett 10. So we're going to be kind of comparing PSA 10s to Beckett 9.5s because that's a lot more attainable. But Beckett does have a black label 10 and a pristine 10 that are almost impossible to get. So SGC is kind of similar scale to PSA, but we'll look at some of those values and compare them. And then, yeah, on the uniformity side, like I said, kind of industry standard now that people like to have their cards in PSA slabs. All of my collection is in PSA slabs for the most part, so I just like to send my stuff to PSA, have the holders look all the same, and just have that uniformity. On the other side of it, too, having your cards in a PSA slab does make them quite a bit more liquid. People know exactly what condition it's in then, and there's just a good commodity market for, a PSA 10 of a particular card. It's really easy to compare between PSA 10s, whereas if the card is just raw, it's hard for people to know like what condition it's in exactly and all of that stuff. So it does help your cards become a little bit more liquid. So let's dig into the value side of it a little bit. This was just a card that I sold recently. I had a Jackson Holiday Refractor PSA 10. So this was just one that was on my mind. I know Jackson Holiday stuff has been selling really well. So I pulled up some kind of comps for us to look at the differences between the companies. And yeah, so starting off with PSA 10. Again, this is from 22 Bowman Draft. Jackson Holiday, just the refractor, it's not numbered, so there's a lot of these out there. It's really easy to compare values between them. So this just ended on November 30th, so just yesterday, last night's winning bid was $207, so we'll kind of use that as the baseline and go from there. So PSA 207.50 was the most recent comp just yesterday. Here, switching over to SGC, again, they got that black holder. It does look really nice with some cards, I'll give them that. But this one was actually best offer accepted, so I went over to 130point.com. 130point.com is the good site to use to see what stuff actually sold for if it was best offer. And we can see that the best offer accepted was 125 on that. And this was just a couple weeks ago, so mid-November. So PSA was a little over $200. SGC 10 was 125. You can see that there's obviously a little difference there in price. And then switching over to Beckett, like I said, Beckett's not grading quite as many cards right now, and I'll show you some of the data later on. So I actually couldn't find a 9.5 or a 10 of the refractor that sold recently. So this was kind of the closest thing that I could find. This was back in October. Purple refractor at a 250, so, in all honesty, like quite a bit better card than just the unnumbered refractor. But basically sold for the same as the PSA 10 unnumbered refractor. So as we look into some of these things, we can use that as kind of a comp. And the one thing with Beckett that you can see on here is you do get the subgrades. So you got centering, edges, corners, and surface, and they all got 9.5 on this. So that's not the reason that this one sold for 225 was because it got a bad subgrade or anything. But yeah, there was lots of refractor 9s, lots of refractor 8.5s out there. I couldn't find a single refractor 9.5, so it just shows you that they're not grading quite as many cards as PSA and SGC right now. So let's move on. All right, so looking at uniformity, so the other side of why I said you choose PSA over one of the other companies. This is from GemRate on Instagram. If you give them a follow, they publish all kinds of really cool statistics and just numbers every single month. Showing who's grading what. So this is the most recent stuff that they had up. Obviously, it's December 1st, so we'll have November stuff coming out soon. But this is looking back at October. And this is just for the sports category from them. They have separate data that they publish for TCG and just the non-sports stuff. So you can see PSA is grading a ton of cards right now. That was 644,000 sports cards last month. And SGC was the second place with 112,000. So like I said, just PSA is doing a lot more volume than all these other companies, and that's why people like to have that uniformity in their collection with sending stuff to PSA. You can see that is a little bit down from last year. So this is month over month. They're up 7% from last month. Year over year, it's down 10%. I think that's mostly just attributed to people were still sending in way more stuff even last year. And SGC has really popped off this past year. And I would attribute that to all those specials that they're doing with just offering crazy deals on the new release stuff to send in through them. So yeah, you can see Beckett was at 35,000. So Beckett's grading 35,000 cards a month versus PSA doing 644,000. We can move on and show you a couple other statistics from them. So this is showing gem rate by era. So they are taking PSA 10s, SGC 10s, and then anything Beckett's 9.5 or greater is counting for this. So you can say just for 2020s, obviously most of the stuff that we're going to be submitting is the new stuff. And obviously it is easier to grade the new stuff versus stuff that has been sitting in a binder for 50 years. So you can see it's almost impossible to get a gem on a card from the 70s or 80s. But yeah, just looking at the 2020 era, PSA sports cards are getting about almost 50% of cards are coming back as PSA 10s. And again, this is after people have obviously reviewed them, and so they're not just sending in every card that comes out of the box, right? They're looking them over, and this is what they're choosing to send in. So PSA about 50%, Beckett at 36%, and again, remember this is 9.5 or better at Beckett is only like a third of the cards, and then SGC very very similar to PSA at 48%. So about 50% of cards at SGC are coming back as 10s. Oh, wrong direction. And then this is just showing you again items graded by month. This is a combination of TCG and sports cards. So when you combine the two together, PSA grading 1 million cards a month, kind of crazy. And then you can see all these other ones down here, been pretty flat. PSA over the last year has been on a little upward trend still. Like we said, they're down a little bit for sports cards. They're doing more TCG than ever that can be attributed to that. You can also see down here, this is CGC trading cards. So this is CGC's TCG department, and they have actually spiked quite a bit recently. So on like the Pokemon side of things, that would be them there. All right, why use group submissions? So everybody has the ability to submit cards on their own. I've been submitting cards on my own for a couple of years now. I've sent in a couple thousand cards. When you really break it down though, for the average collector, it just isn't worth it to send one card in on your own. So I have one particular card that I'm going to be looking over with you guys here on the stream, and we'll actually go through the process of what would it cost to grade it myself. So yeah, it is expensive to send in yourself because not only do you have the grading fee, you also have shipping there, and likewise you have insurance on the way there that you'd have to pay for yourself, and then you also have the return shipping from PSA that you'll have to pay for in addition to the grading fee. So, and I'll walk you through it. It is kind of a confusing process to submit cards to PSA. Maybe that'll change in the future, but as of right now, it is pretty confusing. And unless you've done it yourself or had somebody walk you through it, it's just hard to recommend it to people. There is a lot of steps. There's a lot of things that you can mess up on it. So having somebody that knows what they're doing submit for you just makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and then lastly, you guys have the ability to submit through us the cards that you've prepped yourself. But we also offer you the benefits of reviewing cards for you at the different price. So let's switch over. I'm going to take you to PSA. And actually here, let me switch you guys over to the actual card view for a second. So I have this Junior Caminero Sapphire First Bowman. Kind of a cool card. He came up and debuted at the end of the year, so his stuff has been really valuable, and he's one of the top prospects in baseball. I'm expecting a big year from him this next year, so it's a card that I would really like to get graded. So let's take you back over to the PSA website. And this is just going to show you guys the cost of, if I wanted to send in that Junior Caminero myself, what's it going to cost me? Because most people that come to the store, they have never submitted cards before and they have no idea just how much it costs. So I'm going to choose trading cards. Maybe. Alright, I'm going to do grading, and this is the first confusing thing. So obviously this is a non-auto card, but PSA has all these different options for what you want the label to look like if it has an autograph on it. So I'm going to go no autograph authentication. We'll go next. And I will also show you if you submit more than 20 cards, you can do the bulk pricing. If you're just submitting one card, you have to do it at a different service level. So you can see all the different ones to choose from here. There's a lot of numbers on here. Really easy to pick the wrong one. But this is going to be a 1980 to present card. The maximum declared value that I can do for this level is $499, $500, and it's going to cost me $25 for the grading fee. So let's go hit next. And we'll wait for it to load. Alright, so this is going to be 2023 Bowman. Let's just do Sapphire. Junior Caminero. Alright, so it's got all the different parallels on here. Make sure you choose the right one. This is card number 61. And I'll just put the value in for 100. I think it's about a $100 card. So if I save that in there as the declared value, then you can see it's one card at $25. I hit next. And then I think next is going to ask me for return shipping. I'm going to ship it back to me. And it is $44 to do my one card at PSA at the lowest service level. So, ooh, that's kind of expensive. Let me go back. What if I had 20 of those cards? And I could get the bulk rate. So that is going to be the value bulk, 1980 to present. Alright, I'll click back into this to edit it. Let's make it 20 cards. And we'll keep that $100 per card declared value, but that'll make it $2,000. So let's save that. 20 items at $19. Sweet. Let's go to next. Ship it back to me. And it's going to cost me $420. So it's going to be $21 a card once I include that shipping. And that doesn't include shipping there or the insurance on the shipping there. So, you know, when you look at it, submitting 20 cards, you could just drop them off with us, and it's going to cost the same amount. So why not let us fill out the forms, and we'll take it from there for you. So, yes, there can be a case if you're submitting 100 cards that it makes sense to do it yourself. But for the average collector, like unless you're going to be doing more cards than that, it just makes a lot of sense to use a group submitter. So let's go back to the presentation here, and I will talk a little bit about choosing which cards to grade. So, like I said, there's a couple of reasons that you choose to send cards in. You know, one is you're trying to increase the value. You know, turn your raw card into a PSA 10 if it's in good condition, and you have a chance to turn it into some big money on a card like this Connor McDavid. The other reason that I personally send in quite a few cards is just to preserve the condition, and I really like to display my cards in PSA slabs. So here's one of my all-time favorites, Pablo Sanchez from the Backyard Baseball game. I sent this one in myself. This is a really condition-sensitive card. I think it was just a promo card or something, and you don't really see any that are in good shape. So even though it got a 3, it was still worth it for my personal collection to send it in for $20 and get it into that holder. So yeah, we'll try to do our best to help you guys out tonight with determining the value of cards and whether or not it's worth it to send them in. But my biggest thing that I would tell you is use eBay to look up cards and help you determine based on the sold value of both raw cards and graded cards, whether or not it's worth it to send them in. So let's go back to that Junior Caminero example. I think I have pulled up here. All right, perfect. So this is a raw card of this Caminero. There's a lot of like best offers and autographs in here, but these two particular cards are the exact same as the one that I have sold on November 10th, so pretty recently here. Looks like it's like a $35 card raw. But if I switch over to looking at PSA 10s, it looks like the last couple of PSA 10s sold for about $100. So I have an opportunity to turn my $35 card into a $100 card, and maybe it's a little bit tough for you guys to see this. You can zoom in a little bit. But yeah, and I also think that he has an opportunity. You know, it's off season right now, coming into spring training and all that stuff. This could be $150 instead of $95. So I think I have an opportunity to take my $35 card, spend $20 to grade it. So I'm into it for $55 for, you know, opportunity cost of selling it. Into it for $55, and I have a chance for it to be a $100 card. So you do have an opportunity, even in a market that has seen singles come down a little bit, to still add value to your cards. So let's switch back over here and keep going through. Going back to that, just another example for you. Going back to that Jackson Holiday that we were looking at earlier. It looks like this one sold for $50 here just on November 28th. So $50 raw card. The PSA 10 was like $200. SGC 10 was like $125, so you still could make money doing it that way. But you have an opportunity to turn the $50 card into a $200 card potentially, as turning it into a PSA 10. So at the same time, you want to make sure that you do have an opportunity to add value to the card if that's the only reason you're submitting it. If you're not submitting it for a personal collection item, you're going to want to look at the difference between a raw card and a PSA 10. So, like, if the Jackson Holiday raw card is $5 and the PSA 10 is $30, you know, you're not really going to add any value to it, and that's if it tens. So, like we saw on the graphic before, like, if all cards that are being submitted right now from the 2020 era are coming back 50% chance that you get a 10, you know, you got to factor in the value of a PSA 9. So a lot of times a PSA 9 is going to be the same value, or roughly the same value as a raw card. So if that's your cost is $20 to grade it, and you're not adding any value, then you're gonna lose money on a 9 a lot of times. So you gotta factor that in when you're trying to decide what to send in. All right, now this is probably the most asked question: is how do I get my cards ready for submission once you decide that you're gonna send it in? So we get asked to look at cards all the time in the store. We're happy to help out as much as possible, but we want to educate you guys and get you to the point where you can look at cards over for yourself. So let's look at the different things that PSA grades on the card. So there's 4 different criteria that they're gonna score that end up turning into your final grade. They look at centering of the card, they look at the corners, they look at the edges, and they look at the surface of the card. So you can see we have these Mr. Minty kits available to purchase tonight. One of the items in there is this card centering tool, and it looks kind of crazy. It's got all these lines on it. But basically this is helping you look at the centering of your card. I would say that's the biggest thing in terms of eye appeal of cards, is just the centering. So the first thing that you should always look at on your cards is that centering. And let me flip you guys over to the camera view here real quick. I got a couple different examples of centering that you can look at. So some cards like this Kobe, it's going to be really easy to tell when a card is off center. So if it's got the thick borders going all the way around the 4 sides, a card that is off center is going to really show, and is going to be something that you should heavily scrutinize before you choose to send it in. So if I just lay this over here real quick, basically how you use one of these card centering tools is that you look at the different lines. They're all numbered, and they also come with a kind of tool that tells you, like, okay, the left border is on 3 and the right border is on 5. Like, what does that score? So PSA allows for 60-40 centering, and we'll look at kind of the standards that they use a little bit more here too. But this will give you the score, and if it's green, that means that it is worth sending in for you. So they do more heavily scrutinize the front centering than the back centering, but that is something that you should take into account when you're deciding to send something in. So, like I said, a card with the border going all the way around is a little bit tougher to have the 10 centering, but as you can see with this Kobe, still definitely possible. And then you have a lot of cards now that have just the border on 1 or 2 sides, and it's a little bit easier to get away with cards that are off center on this. So a card like this, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you really just want to make sure that the border on this side and the border on the bottom are matched up, and that's going to be what you use for it. But a card that's off-center on this is going to be a lot less showing than on the Kobe, where if it was off-center, you got the huge borders on one side and then the small borders on the other side. Something like this, you could definitely get away with a little bit more off-center on. And then you also have other cards. I know Victor Robles, ooh, big card. But you have cards that have no border, and then it is a lot easier to get away with stuff that's off-center. So PSA does kind of have like standards from the companies that help them, determine what is centered and what's not centered. But yeah, way easier to get away with something that is off-center when there's no borders on it at all. So that's just one of the things that we look at. I can dig into this a little bit more for you on your Junior Caminero. So actually, let's switch over to looking at the different submission levels first. We'll come back to that, but remember those 4 different categories they're looking at. They're looking at the centering, the corners, the edges, and the surface. So let's switch over to the Real Sports Cards website, and I'll kind of walk you guys through this. So a lot of different service levels like we saw on the PSA website. It can be kind of confusing, but we've broken it down really easily for you guys. Most cards that I think we're going to be seeing submitted are going to be at that value level. So max declared value, $499 for that level. We aren't going to have a separate TCG or vintage submission level at the beginning here, but you will be able to submit any of those cards at these levels. So max declared value $499. If you bring it in totally ready to go in a card saver, got my card in my card saver here. I've already prepped it. I've done everything. You can give it to us after you fill out the form, and we'll take it for the $21. If you aren't comfortable looking over your cards and you want to just, like if I took this Caminero and I wanted to drop it off and you guys take care of it, you guys prep it, send it to PSA, then that's going to be the $25. So it just totally comes down to whether or not you're comfortable prepping the cards for submission yourself, or if you want us to look at it. And then at the higher levels, we're going to include that review and wipe down automatically. So you'll see on the Value Plus, it's still just a declared value of $499. The difference between Value Plus and the other value services are that the turnaround time is going to be about 20 business days versus 65 for these other ones. So it's still the same declared value, but it costs a little bit extra to get it back in 20 business days. So, if you look at the calendar, 20 business days is going to be 4 weeks. Most of the time, right? Because if you got holidays and stuff in there, that is going to take away from it. But 20 business days is going to be getting it back within a month, typically. So 65 is going to be a little bit longer. So if it's a $500 card or a $400 card and you want to get it back quickly, you have that opportunity to send it in at that level. Once you get over that declared value, then it starts to scale up from there. So for $75, you can do maximum $1,500. And these are turned around pretty quickly. You see 10 business days on that. And going up from there, $2,500. It's $150, and you get it back in 5 days, 5 business days at PSA. And then up from there, Super Express $300, max declared value $5,000. So PSA is basically doing their service levels off of the graded value of the cards. That is the declared value. So we can look at cards today for you guys and help you kind of decide what the declared value is going to be. But going back to that Caminero example, I usually use either like the raw or the PSA 9 price to kind of determine my declared value. So if I think PSA 10 is $100, you could declare the value on $50 for the card. Raw's 35, can go a little bit higher than that maybe. The declared value is used for both the service level and then also the insurance on the way there. So you can always take a risk and send it in at a lower declared value than what you think it's actually worth. But if in the rare event that something were to happen to it while it's at PSA, they'll only cover it for what you declared the value for. And PSA always reserves the right to upcharge it. So like, let's say that I have a $5,000 card and I try to send it in at the $1,500 max declared value level. It'll still take the 10 business days at PSA to get graded, but they reserve the right to say, hey, this is actually a $5,000 card, and they charge you the $300 instead. So it still took you 10 days, but it cost you $300. So you really want to try to be as accurate as possible on those declared values, but I know that can be confusing. We'll try to help answer questions if you guys have it on that. But yeah, just keep in mind that I would recommend using PSA 9 roughly pricing for the declared value. But just know that if it does get upcharged, that means that it was worth more than you thought it was. So if it gets upcharged and you got a PSA 10 and now you have a $5,000 card versus a $1,500 card, then it's probably worth paying a little bit extra of the upcharge. So it's not all bad. All right, let's go through wiping this Caminero down for submission here. So let me switch it back over. Prepping cards for submission. It really is not as difficult as people like to make it out to be. It just takes some practice. So I would recommend, trying stuff out with, lower dollar cards. Don't go straight for the $5,000 card. Let somebody like us take that and prep it for you. But start with some lower dollar cards. I've done a lot of cards, so I'm really comfortable doing these. But I always like to use a sheet of paper, or there's different companies that make little mats that you can do it on. You just want a clean surface to work with. And always use fresh penny sleeves and everything. So as soon as I take this out of here, I'm going to chuck it, and we'll start going through this. So some people like to wear gloves for doing this. Personally, I don't. I'm used to handling cards, and the thing that gloves prevent is fingerprints. But at the same time, if your gloves get dirty at all from just different stuff on the table or whatever, then you didn't really help yourself out at all if you're going to get that on the cards instead of your fingerprints. So I just accept that I'm going to get fingerprints on the card. I can wipe off the fingerprints and we'll be totally fine. I think I might have given away my microfiber. Can one of the guys out there bring me a microfiber? Nate, maybe? I'll talk about, in the meantime, some of the different things that I am going to look for on the card. So, like I said, they're gonna score the surface, the edges, the corners, and the centering. So this Junior Caminero, just from the eye appeal, I can tell that it is really well centered. Thank you, buddy. Yeah. I can tell that it's really well centered, but if you wanted to, you could use the centering tool to say that okay, this is within the 60-40 threshold. But honestly, as a good rule of thumb, if you can tell that it's off center, then the PSA grader is probably going to be able to tell it's off center too. So if to you it looks like it's really well centered, left to right, top to bottom, obviously on a card like this, the left to right centering is going to be more apparent than the top to bottom because it doesn't have the same borders on the top and the bottom. So as long as you see it centered, left to right, I would say you're probably good to go. Back centering, like I said, they don't scrutinize the back centering quite as much, so I'm not too worried about that. But at that point, once I know that it's a centered card, you can do that before you even take it out of the top loader. You can tell that it's centered. I'm going to start looking at the different areas. So you're going to have to use your different angles to kind of spot different stuff. But surface, I'm looking for different things on different types of cards. On a Bowman card, I'm going to be looking for a lot of surface scratches and just print lines and that type of stuff. On Pokemon cards, I think I got a couple Pokemon cards here. Let's actually do a different one. On Pokemon cards, it's going to be a lot of centering, but then also the back corners are really where you're going to see a lot of whiting and that type of stuff. So different cards are going to have different flaws. And the more you look at cards, the more you'll realize, that Chrome cards have this, paper cards have this. Black border cards are going to have tougher edges to grade and all that different stuff. So you'll know the different stuff that you're looking for. But yeah, anything is going to potentially have fingerprints on it, so that'll be one thing that you want to make sure to wipe off. So surface looks pretty good on this. It's got maybe a tiny bit of a bad edge here on the bottom left. You can kind of see it there in the light maybe. But I think it's probably still worth sending in, still worth taking a shot on. I don't see any dimples. So dimples are impressions in the card. So I'm looking for that on both the front and the back. I feel like a lot of times what gets missed on cards is that people look at the front and say, oh, this is a perfect card, and then they don't look at the back. And sometimes there can be different issues on the back, and you have to take those into account when deciding whether or not something is worth sending in. So this one looks really clean. All the corners look good. Again, you got 8 corners to look at. You got to look at the front 4, but you also got to look at them on the back. A card can have, a perfect corner on the front and not be perfect on the back. So this one looks pretty good, though. Maybe got not a perfect corner on the bottom there, but I still think it's probably worth sending in. So I got my microfiber here. You always want to use one of these ones they're made for like glasses or different electronics. They're really fine microfiber. You don't want to use like these ones. Should not be used on cards. They'll actually scratch them up a little bit. But use a clean microfiber. It's always good to have a couple of these available. After I use them for a while, they get chrome dust and different stuff on them, and then you want to just wash them. They can just go through the washing machine. But yeah, let's look at this Caminero. I like to start with the edges on mine. So the good rule of thumb is like if you run your finger on it and you feel it not smooth, then the grater is probably going to do the same thing. And that is something that is really easy to help out a little bit. All you really need to do for that is just hold it securely, and I would say it's like sanding, but it's really not. It's such a fine microfiber that it's not going to do a whole lot to it, but just take off any imperfections there. You can just run it alongside it. The big thing when you're doing this and doing anything with your cards is to make sure that you are careful with the corners. That's the easiest way to damage a card at this point, is like you take your perfect card and you're trying to help out the edge a little bit, and you just catch the corner, and all of a sudden you've got a really bad corner on your card and you just ruined it. So be very careful. I like to fold my microfiber in half a little bit like this and just get it so that's a really small area that I'm working with. But just a little bit of imperfection there on the top. Now it feels pretty smooth. And one of the reasons that I like to start with the edges is like now I can see like a little bit of chrome dust that I just got on the front of the card here. If you do the edges first and then you have the chrome dust on the card, then you just have to wipe down the surface once. If you do the surface first and then you do the edges, now you're going to have to wipe down the surface again. So you just wasted your time a little bit. So let me feel this side. This one's got a little bit of bumpiness to it. So I'll be very careful and just run it alongside there. That feels pretty good. So you can see I'm not doing anything super firm. It's just nice and light. It's just from cutting the cards that they didn't get cut perfectly. So I don't need to do too much to it, but just enough that it feels smooth. That feels nice and good there. All right, and then I'm going to do surface. So like I said, I'm not too worried about fingerprints because I'm not wearing gloves anyways. So what I like to do is I hold the card like kind of towards the top and just kind of wipe it down. If it's something pack fresh that you haven't really handled, it's not too much of a worry. But since I've handled this card a little bit, I'm gonna wipe that down. And then we'll flip it over, do the same thing on the back. I'm gonna try to hold it towards the top of the card, and I'll show you why after. Alright, so last thing I'm going to look at is to make sure there's not any chrome dust on here. I like to hold it at like a really, really tall angle to do that. And if you get the right lighting, it's really easy to see if there's just a little chrome dust, and that will wipe off easily. So it looks pretty good there. Let's flip over, do the same thing on the front. It's kind of hard because I want to show you on the camera, but also like actually see it myself. There's a little just piece of chrome dust down here. I'm going to get that off. Make sure there's no fingerprints on here. So again, I just have my little fingerprints at the top. I'm not too worried about those right now. I'm maybe gonna do one last wipe on the edge there, so that in case I get any fingerprints on the edge, I get that. All right, and then this next step. So I'm very comfortable sleeving cards. We sleeve thousands of cards every day for breaks. If you're not comfortable, I will show you in just a second an easier way to make sure you don't damage cards putting them in the sleeves. But I'm pretty comfortable with this, so I'm not too worried about it. Get that card in there. Oh, this is actually a thick sleeve too, which actually is not a bad thing to say. So you can use thick sleeves, and that makes it even easier to put your cards in. But I've got my card in here, and it is like 2/3 of the way in, maybe half the way in. I can see one little piece of chrome dust that stayed in there. So I'm actually just going to grab a new penny sleeve. If you ever see anything that still stayed in there, just grab a new penny sleeve. Penny sleeves are cheap. That's why they call them penny sleeves, right? So let's carefully inspect that in there. It looks pretty good in the sleeve. So you can see now I'm holding it on the penny sleeve. And I've still got my fingerprints here at the top, but now that I'm holding it, on the sleeve, I'm not going to add extra fingerprints there. So I am going to, here, let me just fold this up again. I'm just going to get those last fingerprints off the card there. So again, be very careful with the corners, but I know that I'm not going to get it since I've got my microfiber folded and right in the middle of the card here. So I'm going to wipe towards the outside, and then I know I'm not going to catch the corner. Because when you catch a corner is really, you went outside and then you brought it back this way, right? So if I keep it in the middle, I should be just fine. I'll do one final check for fingerprints. Looks pretty good to me. So I'll put that in there, and then this is going to go into a semi-rigid. So I got it in the sleeve, going to put it in a semi-rigid, and then it is ready to submit. So that's in kind of a nutshell, maybe a little bit more in depth than you really need to do. But that's how I got this Junior Cabanero ready to send into PSA. So that one is all set and ready to go now. So I just got to do that with a couple more cards, and you're ready to submit them. So yeah, like I said, with Pokemon, just a little bit different. I'm looking for centering. I'm not too worried about the surface. You should look it over still, but just less likely to have surface issues. And I'm spending a lot of time looking at the back of the card for any edge issues. But yeah, so that card is now ready to send off to PSA. This card could be submitted at that $21 level. If I switch it back over to our Real Sports Cards website, this card, if I fill out the form, is going to be able to go in at this level because it doesn't need a reviewer wipe down. It's all ready to go to PSA. So now let's talk a little bit about the Real Sports Card specific submission process. So if you go to our realsportscards.com/PSA grading, we're going to have QR code on all the stands out here, and then also be giving out different business cards that will take you straight to this, that you can just keep on your desk or keep with your cards. That'll make it really easy to go in and submit cards. So I come to the page, I'm just going to scroll down here, and this is the form right here that you're going to fill out. So you just click on that button there. It looks really scary at first because it says 65 pages on the bottom. Don't worry, you don't have to fill out 65 pages. We allow for a maximum of 50 cards to be submitted for a drop-off or mail-in submission. You can submit 10 cards from breaks. So 60 of the pages here are the 10 cards for breaks and 50 cards for mail-in. So the only time you're filling out that many pages is if you actually have 50 cards that you're going to submit all together. So as soon as you're done with your 1 or 5 cards, then you can submit this. So let's do it with my Junior Cabanero. Here, I'll make it a little bit bigger for you guys so that you can see it better. Email. I'm just going to do test@realsportscards.com. Contact name is Titus. Contact phone number. I know you guys all want my phone number, but we'll just put in a fake phone number here. And then submission type is going to be drop off at MN location. So you can see the different options here. I'll be taking drop offs at Wisconsin very soon, and then we'll be taking break hits here in the next week or two. Hopefully by Bowman Draft we should be able to take those. One thing with break hits, because I know we're streaming this, some people might be watching that are in our breaks. They have to be submitted within 24 hours. So that's just so that we can catch them before they get shipped out. So stuff is getting sorted very quickly right now. So we got to get the forms filled out pretty much right away. So we'll be trying to help educate people, and if we pull a big card, be like, hey, by the way, you can submit it to us directly for grading. So it'll be a little bit of a process, but we'll get people in the know on that, and we'll get some media up on Uncommon for you as well. So once I choose drop off at MN location, it's going to take me straight to the card details. Put as much detail in as you can here. Nate, who works at the front of the store, is going to be kind of verifying the cards as you drop them off. So again, looks kind of scary, but really we just want you to put in the what card you're sending in, because we need to be able to say like these are the exact cards you brought in, and not just taking a pile of cards and people say that they sent in one thing but they actually brought in something else, and that's why some other group submitters have gotten into trouble. So we're gonna put 2023 Bowman Sapphire Junior Caminero. If you can put the card number on here too, it's BCP 61. And then I'm just going to put that it's base. And I am going to send this in at the value, no review wipe down level, so that's the $21 level. And again, there is some information here. All prices include card review and wipe down with the exception of the $21 value level. Cards submitted at the $21 level must be prepped and ready to submit. So again, max declared value $4.99, estimated turnaround time is 65 business days. Again, that turnaround time is the time that is at PSA. So that clock begins when they receive the cards, and then they'll ship them back to us. So there's a little bit of extra time in there because, you know, we'll have the time when it is dropped off at the store. We'll try to send out every submission level every week, but we'll see what ends up coming in. But the value level will for sure be sending out every week for you all. So you'll have the week at the beginning, you'll have the shipping time to PSA, you'll have the 65 business days, and then you'll have the shipping time back to us before it's ready to pick up. So chose my service level. Again, I'm going to declare the value here, I think at like $75 maybe. We saw PSA 10s are about $100, raw is like $35. So I'm going to go a little bit in between. Actually, maybe I can go a little bit lower. Let's do 60. Would you like to submit additional cards? So this is where you'll have the ability to either end the form, or if you have a second card that you want to send in, you can choose to do so there. So choosing no takes you to the end of the form. Choosing yes takes you to another card page to fill out. So I'm going to say, no, I don't have any additional cards. Please read the terms. I know this is everybody's favorite thing whenever you have to submit something, but we got to do the legal stuff. Basically, it just says that you're gonna pay the grading fee. We don't collect any fees up front on the grading, so we just need you to agree that yes, I will pay the $21 when it comes back from PSA for my card. And this just says that like if you don't pay it, we're gonna try to contact you again. And then if you end up abandoning the cards by not paying your grading fee or just never picking them up, then we can sell them or do whatever we please with them. But yes, so if you go to the bottom, click agree and submits, boom, submits. That's all it is. So like I said, it looks kind of scary. It says it's 65 pages, but you can fill it out really fast actually. And yeah, so that goes into our system, and we'll take that. We'll verify the cards that you drop off in the store with Nate's. And then we'll take them from there and send them off to PSA for you. So let me switch back to one more slide here on the presentation. So PSA's different grading stages. So again, like I said, each service level has the different estimated turnaround times. That begins once the order arrives at PSA. So we package up the cards, send them to PSA. Once it hits this stage, that's where the 65-day clock begins for that value level. It's going to work its way through here, grading, assembly, and this is new actually now. You used to not get your grades until after the quality checks are completed, but now that PSA is kind of trying to modernize the app that they have and their experience, the grades pop a little bit earlier. That'll just be on our end. We'll save the surprise for you guys. You won't see the grades until you get them back at the store. So, but that's just a look at the different steps that they have. And then once it gets completed, it'll get shipped back to us. You will be contacted based on the email that you gave us in the form. A couple different times throughout the process, you'll get an email when your order ships out to PSA. Or sorry, not when your order ships out. When we receive your cards in the store, you'll get an email confirming that we got these cards. If you submit something that requires a review, so anything besides the $21 level will include that review and wipe down, you'll get an email when the card either passes or fails the review. If your card fails the review, obviously you'll be able to pick it up right away in store, and there's no charge for that if it ends up not passing. But you'll get an email saying that it is passed review, and then it'll get sent off to PSA. You'll get another email when it comes back from PSA with the link to pay your grading fees. So it'll all be conducted right in there. You're not going to have to come to the store and pay anything. You'll just pay it online, and then obviously you'll be able to come in and pick up your cards at that point. So yeah, that's what to expect after your submission. I'll switch you guys back over here. That's kind of all that I have prepped for our presentation, but I will pop out in the store. We'll be taking questions, and I know some of you guys are watching online, so if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or any of our guys on Facebook. You can also email psa@realsportscards.com, and we'll be monitoring that for you as well. So I'll pop out there, and we'll start answering questions, and we'll help you guys submit some cards. So again, based off some of the stuff that I've told you guys so far today, we want you to kind of try to narrow it down to like 5 cards that we will actually look at for you in the store. So we'll have a couple different stations set up for you to go through and do some hands-on experience of figuring out what to send in here in the store, and then we'll have those QR codes for you to scan to fill out the forms as well. So thanks everyone. I'll pop out there and we'll answer some questions.